Captain Rebecca Holloway, who everyone called Bex because life was too short for 3 syllables, stood in the reception area of the Galactic Council headquarters and wondered what she had done to deserve this. The traffic citation, probably. Or maybe that incident with the cargo container and the Zelthian ambassador's yacht. In her defense, the parking instructions had been in Zelthian, which looked like someone had sneezed on a keyboard. The receptionist, a blob of sentient gas contained in a pressure suit, made a sound like a deflating balloon. Bex's translator earpiece rendered it as, "The council will see you now in Chamber of Infinite Wisdom, 5th door on your left past the cafeteria." Infinite wisdom right next to the lunch buffet, Bex muttered. That tracks. The Chamber of Infinite Wisdom was less chamber and more aircraft hangar with delusions of grandeur. Thousands of aliens filled tiered seating that curved up toward a domed ceiling, painted with what Bex assumed was supposed to be inspirational. It looked like someone had given a squid a paintbrush and a lot of confidence. At the central podium stood Ambassador Vorn, a bird-like creature whose feathers shimmered purple and gold. He had the posture of someone who had never been told no in his entire life and the voice to match. "Ah, the human has finally arrived. How punctual of you to be merely 20 minutes late." "Traffic was murder," Bex said. "Literally, there was a Krillian funeral procession. They stop at every star system to weep. It is very time-consuming." Vorn's feathers ruffled in what her translator unhelpfully labeled as aristocratic disdain. "Yes, well, humans and their grasp of basic temporal courtesy. You have been summoned as a representative witness to today's sacred ceremony. Try not to embarrass your species more than usual." "No promises," Bex said cheerfully. She was directed to a standing section near the back, which was apparently where they put species nobody cared about. She recognized a few fellow humans, some Telgorians who always looked vaguely seasick, and what might have been a potted plant but could also have been Kevin from accounting. With aliens, you never knew. The ceremony was apparently a big deal. Aliens were whispering with the kind of reverence usually reserved for royal weddings or really good pizza. Bex caught fragments of translation. Sacred Communion, the first ones, Ancient Rite of Wisdom, and Please silence all communication devices. A figure emerged from a side entrance, and the entire chamber went silent. High Priest Thalek was a Korthaxi, one of the galaxy's oldest species. He looked like someone had taken a cathedral, made it sentient, and given it a superiority complex. His crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns, and his movements had the deliberate quality of someone who knew everyone was watching. "We gather today," Thalek began, his voice resonating like a gong in a cave, "to perform the Rite of Ancestral Communion. For 10,000 generations my people have preserved the sacred dialect, the tongue of the first ones who brought civilization to the stars. Today, we call upon them once more, seeking their guidance in these troubled times." Bex tried to look respectful. She failed, mostly because a Telgorian next to her had started drooling, and it was becoming a hazard. Thalek raised his arms and the lights dimmed. "Antiqui patres audite preces nostras, sapientia vestra nos ducet." Bex blinked, then blinked again. Wait, had he just said what she thought he said? The chamber had gone full theatrical. Incense that smelled like burnt sugar and regret wafted through the air. Lights swirled in patterns that probably meant something to someone. Thalek continued chanting in what the galaxy considered the most sacred language in existence, the words flowing with the weight of millions of years. "Dona nobis pacem et intellectum, per secula seculorum." Bex felt her eye twitch. No way. That was Latin. That was absolutely 100% middle school Latin class, boring textbook. Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon, Latin. She looked around. Nobody else seemed to notice anything weird. The aliens were all swaying reverently. One was crying. Another had their tentacles clasped in what was probably prayer. Thalek spread his crystalline arms wider. "Lux aeterna luceat ace. Requiem aeternam dona ace." He was doing dramatic hand gestures now, sweeping movements that looked like he was conducting an invisible orchestra, or maybe trying to direct traffic, or possibly having a stroke. It was hard to tell. Bex tried to contain herself. She really did. But there was something absurdly funny about watching an ancient alien priest treat Latin like it was the voice of God while doing interpretive dance moves that would get him kicked out of a community theater. "Looks like he is teaching chickens to fly," she muttered in Latin, because if she was going to hell for this, she might as well commit. Invisible chickens. Very dramatic chickens. The chanting stopped. Every alien in the chamber turned to look at her. Thalec's crystalline body went completely still. The rainbow refractions froze in place. For a moment that stretched like taffy, nobody moved. Then the high priest made a sound like wind chimes falling downstairs and collapsed. "Oh no," Beck said. "No, no, no. I did not sign up for this." Chaos erupted. Aliens were shouting. Security drones zipped overhead. Ambassador Vorn was shrieking something about defiling the sacred ceremony. Someone activated what was apparently the Galactic Council's emergency alarm, which sounded like a whale having an existential crisis. Medical personnel rushed to Thalec. He was not dead, thankfully, because Bex did not need "killed an ancient priest with sarcasm" on her permanent record. He was making small clinking sounds and twitching. "What did you do?" Vorn descended on her like an angry parrot. "What possible action did your primitive mind conceive that could disrupt a ceremony that has been performed flawlessly for millennia?" Bex raised her hands defensively. "I just made a comment. About the hand gestures?" "In what language?" A new voice cut through the chaos. Thalec had recovered enough to sit up, supported by medics. His voice shook. "Child, in what tongue did you speak?" "Latin," Beck said, confused. "It is a dead language from Earth. We do not really use it anymore except for, medical terms and pretentious mottos." Thalec's crystalline face did something complicated. If rocks could express religious ecstasy mixed with existential terror, that was the look. "The sacred dialect," he whispered. "You speak the sacred dialect, fluently, casually, as though it were nothing." "I mean, I took 3 years in school, so I would not say fluently." "Someone get me a linguist," Vorn screamed. "Now!" This, Bex reflected as security drones surrounded her, was definitely worse than the traffic citation. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was, in Bex's professional opinion, an absolute clown show. And she had once attended a literal clown show on Rigel 7, so she knew what she was talking about. They had moved to a smaller chamber, which still held about 300 very excited and very angry aliens. Thalec sat in a position of honor, having recovered from his fainting spell, but not from his apparent religious awakening. He kept staring at Bex like she had personally descended from heaven, which was uncomfortable. "Explain yourself, human." Vorn had somehow become even more pompous. "How does a cargo pilot speak the sacred dialect of the first ones?" "For the last time, it is just Latin." Bex was getting tired of this. "It is a dead language from Earth. Romans spoke it. Then the Romans died. The language also died. We keep it around for science names and legal documents. It is not mystical. The sacred dialect has been preserved by the Korthaxi for 3.7 million years, Thalec said, his voice shaking with emotion. "It is the language of the first ones, the beings who brought civilization to my world when my ancestors were barely sentient. It is written in our most holy texts. It is the foundation of our faith." "Cool," Beck said. "The Romans made roads and aqueducts and had a lot of opinions about bread. They were not really in the uplifting aliens business. Can we please have an actual expert weigh in?" Ambassador Vorn looked ready to molt from stress. "Before this human causes an intergalactic incident." The doors opened. A human shuffled in, wearing a cardigan that had seen better decades and carrying approximately 40 datapads, like he was personally responsible for documenting the apocalypse. "Professor Dmitry Kowalski," he announced to nobody in particular. "Xenolinguistics. I was eating lunch. This better be good." "Professor," Vorn said with forced patience. "This human claims that the Korthaxi sacred dialect is merely a dead Earth language called Latin. Please inform her that she is mistaken so we can all return to our lives." Dmitry looked at Bex, then at Thalec, then at the council. He set down his datapads with the careful precision of someone about to ruin everyone's day. "She is not mistaken," he said. "I have been trying to tell you people this for 20 years. The chamber exploded with noise. Dmitri waited it out with the patience of a man who had spent his career being ignored. The sacred dialect is not just similar to Latin, he continued once the shouting died down. It is Latin. Vulgar Latin, specifically, with some corruption from 3 million years of transmission. But unmistakably, Latin. Thalik made a sound like breaking glass. Impossible. Oh, it gets better. Dmitri was warming up now, and Bex recognized the gleam of an academic who finally had a captive audience. The Yithrani holy texts, ancient Greek, the Morvathian prophecies, Sanskrit, the Kelleran wisdom scrolls, Sumerian, the Brelix creation myths, Old Norse, and honestly that one makes so much sense now that I know because their god apparently got drunk and fought a giant snake. This is absurd, Vorn said, but his feathers were drooping. I have documentation. Dmitri started pulling up holographic displays. Look, Korthaxi sacred phrase, Dona nobis pacem. Latin, give us peace. Yithrani blessing, Axios anesti. Greek, he is risen. Morvathian mantra, Om Shanti Shanti. Sanskrit, peace, peace. The evidence is overwhelming. But the first ones, Thalik whispered, they came from the stars. They taught us agriculture, language, mathematics. They are the foundation of our civilization. Yeah, Bex said slowly, puzzle pieces clicking together in her head. About that, what did these first ones look like? Thalik gestured to a holographic display. An ancient stone carving appeared. The figure was unmistakably humanoid. 2 arms, 2 legs, approximately 6 feet tall. Huh, Beck said. Weird. The investigation room was cramped, poorly lit, and smelled like something had died in the ventilation system. Bex was fairly certain it was just someone's lunch, but with aliens you never knew. So let me get this straight, she said, staring at the mountain of evidence Dmitri had spread across 3 tables. You think ancient humans accidentally time-traveled across the galaxy and became everyone's gods? Not time-traveled, Dmitri corrected, pushing his glasses up. Space-traveled, possibly time-traveled. Look, the physics are complicated, but yes, essentially. Lieutenant Crix clicked his mandibles in what Bex had learned was the insectoid equivalent of a migraine. The security officer looked like a praying mantis had gotten really into military discipline. This is the most ridiculous theory I have ever heard, and I once investigated a conspiracy that the council cafeteria was run by sentient mold. Was it? Bex asked. Yes, but that is beside the point. Dmitri pulled up more holographic displays. Look at the evidence. Throughout human history we have unexplained disappearances. The 9th Roman Legion. Thousands of soldiers vanished without a trace in Britain around 120 AD. The Roanoke colony. An entire settlement gone, only the word Croatoan carved in a tree. People get lost, Crick said. They die. They wander into the wrong territory. The Indus Valley civilization, Dmitri continued, ignoring him, thrived for 2,000 years, then the inhabitants just left. No war, no disaster, just abandoned. Flight 19, 5 military aircraft disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle in 1945. Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. The list goes on. Bex frowned. You think all those people ended up on alien planets? I think some of them did. Dmitri pulled up Earth's archaeological records. We have found evidence of portal anomalies throughout human history. Brief tears in space-time, usually coinciding with specific astronomical alignments, most close immediately, but some stayed open long enough for people to fall through. That is absurd, Crick said, but he leaned forward. Is it? Dmitri pulled up comparison images. Look at this Korthaxi holy site, built 3.7 million years ago. These construction techniques, Roman engineering. These support arches? Identical to the Pont de Garde aqueduct. This irrigation system? Roman design, just bigger. The images kept coming. Yithrani temples with Greek columns. Morvathian cities laid out in patterns identical to ancient Indian urban planning. Kelleran artifacts with Sumerian cuneiform that predated human civilization by millions of years. So you are saying, Beck said slowly, That random humans got yeeted across space and time, landed on primitive alien worlds, and everyone thought they were gods? Essentially, yes. And they just went with it? What would you do? Dmitri asked. You are a Roman soldier. You fall through a portal. You are suddenly on an alien world with no way home. You meet primitive aliens. Do you tell them you are just a regular guy who is very lost and scared? Or do you lean into the whole mysterious visitor from the sky thing and hope it keeps you alive? Bex had to admit he had a point. Crix pulled up a star map. If this is true, we should see a pattern. Portal locations on Earth should correspond to species who have human-like mythology. Dmitri grinned. Already checked. Look. The map lit up. Portal anomalies on Earth lined up perfectly with the homeworlds of dozens of species. Every single one had legends of visitors from the stars. Every single one had sacred languages derived from human origins. Oh no, Bex said. Oh yes, Dmitri replied. The entire galactic civilization is based on confused humans who got lost. Very lost. This is going to cause so many problems. So many. Crix stood abruptly. We need to inform the council immediately. They're going to lose their minds. Bex warned. Yes, Crix said grimly. Yes, they are. He was not wrong. The emergency session made the previous emergency session look calm. Aliens were shouting in approximately 40 different languages. Someone had thrown a datapad. Thalik was having what appeared to be a spiritual crisis in the corner, muttering prayers in Latin while rocking back and forth. Order! Ambassador Vorn's voice cut through the chaos. We will have order, or I will have this entire chamber vented into space. You cannot vent a chamber into space, someone shouted back. I will find a way. Now everyone sit down. The council reluctantly settled. Dmitri stood at the central podium, looking remarkably calm for someone about to destroy multiple religions. The evidence is conclusive, he said. Humans have been accidentally portal traveling for thousands of years. These travelers became the first ones, the sky teachers, the star visitors that appear in galactic mythology. They taught primitive species agriculture, language, and basic technology. Then they died, because humans only live about 80 years and there was no way home. This is heresy, someone yelled. This is documented fact, Dmitri countered. I have archaeological evidence, linguistic evidence, genetic evidence from preserved first one remains that match human DNA. The math does not lie. So our entire civilization, a Yathrani delegate said weakly, is based on lost humans? Lost, confused, probably terrified humans who did their best to help the species they encountered, Dmitri confirmed. This is unacceptable. Vorn had progressed to full hysteria. Earth must pay reparations for this cultural fraud. Humanity must be expelled from the Council for retroactive illegal colonization. Retroactive illegal colonization. Bex had been quiet until now, but that was too stupid to let pass. Seriously? You cannot just... No, shut up, I am talking now. Bex stood up, and the chamber went quiet, mostly from shock. You are all losing your minds over nothing. Nothing. Thalik looked up from his spiritual crisis. Our gods were humans. So what? Bex spread her hands. Okay, yes, some lost Romans or Greeks or Indians or whoever ended up on your planets. They taught your ancestors some stuff. But you know what? Your ancestors took that knowledge and ran with it. You built civilizations. You created art, music, philosophy. You made it yours. But it is based on a lie, someone said. It is based on knowledge, Bex corrected. Does it matter where it came from? The Korthaxi took Latin and Roman engineering and built a society that lasted millions of years. The Yathrani took Greek philosophy and created ethical frameworks that guide half the galaxy. The Morvathians took Sanskrit meditation techniques and achieved enlightenment we still do not understand. She was on a roll now. You think humanity does not know what it is like to have your worldview shattered? We spent millennia thinking we were alone. We had religions claiming Earth was the center of the universe. Then we found out we were just one planet around one star in one galaxy among billions. Did we collapse? No. We adapted. We grew. We joined the galactic community. She makes a point, Crick said quietly. The first ones were not gods, Bex continued. They were just people. Scared, lost people who tried to do some good before they died. That does not diminish what you built. It makes it more impressive. Because you did not need gods. You did it yourselves. The chamber was silent. Dmitri cleared his throat. Also, humanity had no idea this was happening. We thought those people were just dead. So maybe stop acting like we pulled some kind of elaborate scam. Furthermore, Crix added, because apparently they were a team now, if the Council punishes humanity for accidents that occurred millions of years ago, we establish a legal precedent for retroactive justice that will tear apart the entire galactic legal system. Vorn deflated. His feathers drooped. So what do we do? Thalek stood slowly. He approached Bex, his crystalline body still refracting light, but somehow looking less imposing. You are right, human. The knowledge was a gift. What we did with it was our choice. He paused. Although I would appreciate if you stopped comparing my sacred gestures to chickens. I will try, Bex said. No promises. 3 months later, Bex sat in her cargo ship's cockpit, feet up on the console, teaching Crix how to swear in Latin. Okay, repeat after me. Futuita ipsum. Futuita ipsum. Crix attempted, mandibles clicking. Beautiful. That means go have intercourse with yourself. Use it wisely. I will save it for Ambassador Vorn. I like the way you think. The Council had voted to classify the entire First One's revelation, mostly because the alternative was galaxy-wide religious panic and nobody wanted to deal with that paperwork. Humanity had received a formal apology, a significant upgrade in Council status, and a seat on the Cultural Heritage Committee. Bex had tried to refuse the committee position until she learned about the catering budget. Apparently, preserving culture involved a lot of expensive food. She was not going to argue. Thalek had undergone what he called a spiritual evolution and what everyone else called a midlife crisis. He had declared that accidentally creating a galaxy-spanning religion was very on-brand for humans and had appointed Bex as his official cultural liaison. She still was not sure what that meant, but he sent her fruit baskets, so she was not complaining. Earth had become the unexpected keeper of galactic religious history. The Vatican had nearly exploded. The Pope had required sedation. 3 universities had spontaneously formed new departments of xenoarchaeological theology. Message coming in, Crix reported, from Professor Kowalski. Bex pulled up the communication. Dimitri's face appeared looking exhausted and exhilarated. I am submitting my paper on the First Ones to the Galactic Academic Journal. They are predicting it will be the most controversial publication in history. Congratulations on destroying everyone's peace of mind, Bex said. Thank you. Oh, by the way, Earth's government asked me to consult on something. They are investigating those portal anomalies, the ones that sent humans across space. Bex sat up. Why? Because apparently, Dmitri said with a grin, the portals are not completely random. There is a pattern, and if we can figure out the pattern, we might be able to control them. You are joking. I am not. The preliminary report suggests that with the right technology and astronomical alignment, we could potentially open portals on purpose. Bex looked at Crix. Crix looked at Bex. No, the security officer said firmly. Oh yes, Bex replied. Humanity's response to accidentally colonizing the galaxy cannot be to try doing it again on purpose. Watch us, Dmitri laughed. The project is classified, but between you and me they are calling it Operation Second Chances. First test is scheduled for next year. I want in, Bex said immediately. I assumed you would say that. I will send you the details. Kowalski out. The communication ended. Bex leaned back in her chair, grinning. This is a terrible idea, Crix said. The best ideas usually are. You realize this could go catastrophically wrong. Crix, my friend, humanity's entire contribution to galactic civilization was based on people falling through portals by accident. Imagine what we could do on purpose. The insectoid officer made a sound like grinding metal. I am going to regret this. Probably. Bex pulled up the navigation console. But you are going to help anyway. Unfortunately, yes. Outside the cockpit window, stars stretched across the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, Ancient humans had stumbled through portals and changed the course of galactic history. They had been scared, confused, desperate, but they had tried to help. Bex figured that was as good a legacy as any. "So," she said, pulling up the coordinates for Earth. "Ready to see what happens when humanity actually knows what it is doing?" "No," Crick said. "Perfect. Let's go." The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward Earth, toward answers, toward the next chapter of humanity's accidentally impressive history. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued its work, slightly more humble and significantly more confused about the nature of divinity. And in a small temple on Corthaxa Prime, High Priest Thalek added a new verse to the sacred texts. In Latin naturally, it translated roughly to, "The gods were human, the humans were lost, but the wisdom remains true." Also, the hand gestures are not about chickens. It was, everyone agreed, a weird but fitting addition to millions of years of religious tradition, which was honestly very human of them.